West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin delivered what is likely a fatal blow to President Biden's Build Back Better legislation over the weekend. After months of negotiations, the moderate Democrat announced Sunday he would not support the climate tax and spending plan. While the bill is probably dead, other Democrats in the Senate are not giving up on what is inside it. CBS News' Natalie Brand has the latest.
West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin told Fox News he would not support the president's nearly $2 trillion social spending and climate bill, the Build Back Better Act.
I cannot vote to continue with this piece of legislation. I just can't. I've tried everything humanly possible. I can't get there.
The backlash from party progressives has been swift. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called it a breach of trust in an interview on MSNBC.
The idea that Joe Manchin says he can't explain this back home to his people is a farce.
The White House, in a statement, called Manchin's announcement at odds with what he told the president in conversations last week, but promised to continue to press him to see if he will reverse his position again. The bill needs the support of all 50 Senate Democrats to move forward since it has no GOP support. Nebraska Republican Senator Ben Sasse declared the bill, quote, dead. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is still promising a vote in the new year, indirectly referencing Manchin in a letter to colleagues, saying members will have the opportunity to make their position known on the Senate floor, not just on television. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
And CBS News political contributor Molly Hooper joins me now. Hi, Molly. Great to see you. So Senator Manchin spent months negotiating the Build Back Better bill. He said positive things about the president's willingness to cooperate and compromise. So why the sudden about-face?
Well, I think this really goes to what happens in Washington, D.C. when you're dealing with these negotiations. Essentially, the senator is not on the phone every day talking to Joe Biden. He's on the phone talking to key White House aides and key White House officials who are doing the negotiating on behalf of the president. There will be several calls with the president, but in terms of actually getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's going to be included in the package, that goes between the staff and the senator. And what Senator Manchin said today in an interview back home essentially was that this is all staff-driven, that the staff would release bits of information on his behalf, essentially, that weren't necessarily true. And it just got to the point where he had enough of it. And he said, you know, we're done. We're done with this. And I think that this also goes to a case of senators, when he said he was concerned with the inflation issue, concerned with being ready for future defensive issues should the national security need it, it's a case of the White House not really listening to that and thinking that they could convince this senator to withdraw those concerns somehow. And keep in mind, Senator Manchin lives in a red state now. West Virginia, for all intents and purposes, voted for former President Trump. And so it puts Senator Manchin in a tough spot. And yes, he had been negotiating with the White House. But again, I think that what he said today, especially in that interview, was that the staff, the White House staff, had misrepresented what he had committed to and what he had not committed to. And therein lies the problem.
So you bring up a good point, Molly. Does that mean that he might have come to a different conclusion had he been negotiating with the president directly? Does that mean there's still some room if the president, reaches out to Senator Manchin and says, hey, let's sit down, face to face and hash this out?
Well, and this is where it gets a little tricky, Tanya, because like yesterday, Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, released a blistering statement essentially attacking Senator Manchin. And that doesn't go very far with somebody that you want to negotiate with if you really think those lines of communication are still open. So perhaps that, Senator, the Joes, as we can refer to them, the Joes, Joe Manchin, Joe Biden, do end up having one-on-one conversations more directly. But until then, I'm not sure how much progress will be made with this package. In addition to which, again, if you look at what Senator Manchin is concerned with, inflation and making sure that there's enough money for future issues that should arise, the president really needs to address that. And when Senator Manchin said he wanted $1.5 to $2 trillion total package over 10 years and no budget gimmicks, meaning that if you want to fund the child tax credit extension for 10 years, Well, guess what? That program alone, according to recent scores by various budget groups, that total alone is nearly $1.6 trillion. So it will mean the president making some really serious cuts to various provisions that are favored by the more progressive members in the Democratic Party, and that in and of itself will be very difficult. So
right.
I wouldn't say that it's completely dead, but man, it sure is on life support.
So, Molly, you mentioned the scathing statement that the White House released after the senator's announcement yesterday, but tell us a little bit more about the reaction from the administration, because obviously it's not to the administration's benefit to completely scorch the earth, right? Because then it would probably signal that this is indeed dead. So tell us a little bit more about the details of the administration's reaction.
Well, you know, behind the scenes, I'm not as tapped into the behind the scenes for the White House, so full disclosure on that front. But I think it sounds like from people that I've talked to that a lot of the White House folks were surprised by Senator Manchin taking this position, by going out on Fox News Sunday and saying he's not for this package as it stands. And some Democrats up on Capitol Hill are saying, like Bernie Sanders, the Senate Budget Committee chairman, hey, I think we need to get Senator Manchin on the record. Let's bring this bill up and vote on it immediately and put him on the record. Well, I don't know if they'll necessarily get the result they want. It sort of reminds me of, several years ago when then Senator McCain his hand was forced on former President Trump's health care plan that essentially would eliminate Obamacare, and he went on the Senate floor and put his thumbs down. So I don't think that the White House was really prepared for Senator Manchin to make such a stand. I think that it was sort of like a game of chicken, it feels like. But in terms of moving forward, again, it will require a lot of behind-the-scenes work. And I think that can be done, but depending on how Senator Manchin feels about this scorched earth policy, it's unclear. And frankly, when it comes to Senator Manchin, the scorched earth policy, that is not hurting him at home in West Virginia. He's a popular guy, and a lot of the provisions in the Build Back Better bill would help West Virginians, but Senator Manchin's not saying he doesn't want the child tax extension. He's just saying he wants some means testing and work requirements and certain requirements to be met before you get that money. And so we'll see how it plays out in the future. I'm not sure if it's totally dead or not. But it sure sounds like the Democrats really do want to get something done. They may have to have a scaled-back version. I think that it will be a matter of how the progressives handle that. And right now, the progressives in the party are not pleased, and they're going out and voicing their frustration. But again, those criticisms won't hurt Joe Manchin at home in West Virginia.
So is it safe to say the Build Back Better plan will not pass by Christmas, Molly? Can we at least say that at this point?
I think we can, but let me just add this little wrinkle in here. Even if the Senate Democrats wanted to bring the bill up, say today, they couldn't, because they still have to go through the back and forth with the parliamentarian, the so-called bird bath requirements. That's a whole different subject. But the bill, as it stands, is not ready to even be taken up on the Senate floor right now. In fact, there's a few more days worth of behind-the-scenes wrangling and parliamentary refereeing to be done. And so it's a little disingenuous to say, well, let's take it up tomorrow, because that just couldn't be done.
Right. The timeline extends. All right. Well, Molly Hooper, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it as always.
Thank you.